So, how y'all doing? It's Jared. This is a Ops B450. I like this little knife, right? And it's actually taught me a bit about balisongs, I think. A bit about the balisong flipper, right? Or just the balisong carrier, EDC or whatever. And it's the small knife genre, because there are people out there that really do prefer smaller balisongs. You know, the 4-inch handle, 3.5, 3.25-inch blade, they truly do prefer that for flipping, for carry, for everything. And I didn't fully understand why. I mean, I knew there was that school of thought out there, but I didn't fully understand it. I didn't fully appreciate where they were coming from. And I mean, I can't quite say that I'm in that class of knife. It's not something that I'm ever going to seek out. You know, if I ever have the opportunity to have a bigger balisong or one of these mini ones, I am going to take a larger balisong. But I understand it. You know, I understand where they're coming from. And if this has taught me some stuff about my 32 as well, the Benchmade 32 series, because I've never been the biggest fan of that knife. I own one, but it's too small. Whoa, I almost got myself there. But it's always been kind of a compromised design, right? And this knife here was not compromised. This knife is not compromised in size. This is designed to be this size, right? It wasn't necessarily designed around just fitting better in your pockets, what I'm getting at. And so the feel of it in hand, the fact that the handle sits in my palm, right? Because I can actually do this, you know, I can hold it out any way that I want. I can have this handle, you know, sitting in the same direction that it would have to be if it was longer and wasn't able to come into my palm. But I can actually have it sitting like this, right? I can just hold it in my palm and bury that in there and have it spinning around when I'm actually moving this knife all around, right? Even into a reverse grip, right? I can hold it there, and I can use the top of my finger to grip onto it. I wouldn't ever do that, but you know, if I was an amazing flipper, which some people are, I imagine that would come in handy at some point, you know? And so having the smaller knife definitely has a purpose, you know? And this knife taught me that. This knife has given me an appreciation for the smaller knife. The design overall has got some quirks to it. You know, it's not fantastic, but it's not bad at all. I definitely do have an appreciation for it. I'm gonna I'll get into it on the table. I just wanted to give you a little bit of the actual flipping. Again, what the hell was that? I am not an amazing flipper, and here's a little thing, right? I've been thinking about this. I don't think I'm a flipper. I may be a balisong enthusiast. I may be, you know, a balisong collector. I love the butterfly knives, balisongs, all of them, right? I'm a really big fan of this knife design. But honestly, I don't consider myself a flipper. I've got like 5 tricks in my repertoire that I know how to do, and every once in a while I'll sit down and I'll force myself to learn a new one, you know? But it's not an active part of my life. It's not something that I'm continuously trying to do. And for that, I don't consider myself a flipper. I'm not a flipper. I'm a balisong enthusiast, and they're very different things. And so, yeah, I was just thinking about that. But I'm going to take it down to the table and actually get further into this little knife. This blade is interesting, right? Because these handles are smaller and they're made out of aluminum, so you're losing a lot of weight just by necessity, because they're not going to scale up the machining to, you know, design a different backspace or something like that to increase the weight in these handles. And so they had to make this blade relatively light. But again, they weren't going to, you know, make new backspacers, and so you had to have the same blade stock. They couldn't thin down the blade stock any in this design, lighten the blade up that way. So they've drilled holes in it, right? And it's done a pretty good job. I'm not normally the biggest fan of holes being, you know, drilled in the blade, but I mean, it is aesthetically pleasing. I like the way that they've done that, and that's probably cut down on a lot of weight, as well as the blade is relatively thin here in profile. You can see that it's very thin, especially you throw it up against this B450, the trainer version right here, where you can just see how much wider this thing is in profile, and it's the same frame of knife, it's just a little bit longer. And so they've shrunk down the blade in that dimension. It's 3.25 inches long, I want to say, but it's almost a spear point in design. You can see that there. They call it a drop point, but that is I'm gonna, it's not quite a spear point. The belly does ride a little bit further than the crown of this knife. It is technically a drop point, but it's right on there. So I definitely like the blade shape. The coating is kind of strange. This is like a Becker kind of coating, you know what I mean? This is a hard use coating. This is a woods coating. This is a coating for a carbon blade, carbon steel, something like that. I'm pretty sure this is a 14C28N on this model here, so that's an unnecessary coating. It's got too much texture just for the black coating. You can see that when they actually did strop it, or maybe Chris has stropped it, something like, somebody, just the edge there is polished. The actual edge right up next to the edge bevel is polished. You can see that there, and it comes kind of rounded down to actually meet that edge grind, and so it's just not the best for an aesthetic point of view, but it probably does keep, rust, things like that off of there. And as well, Chris the Bally guy, a guy who sent me this, is from Louisiana, right? And there's rust. I don't know if it'll come in there, but this is a 14C28N, which is a decently stainless steel, but you can just see little rust spots all over this blade, all over the place. It's kind of amusing. The grind does not actually match up to the tip, which is another kind of hit on this blade because it's actually decently symmetrical. You can see the size of the secondary bevel there coming in. Relatively matches up on this side. It's got a decently parallel, or, whatever, edge on it, decently ground edge, except you come up here to the tip and it almost doesn't even meet the tip. You can see how it shallows out there opposed to the way it comes up on this side. So it was not ground completely well, but it definitely, it did get a working edge on it. This isn't necessarily a budget knife, but it's middle end, middle ground, about $80 you're going to pay on the street. I think it's got like $110 MSRP, something like that. And there's a lot of just negative press on these tang pins, right? And I like the reason that they did these tang pins. I can't actually testify how well they're going to hold up. They haven't fallen out. They haven't broken on me since I've been flipping this thing and been playing with it. But if these handles were made out of titanium, right, because that's a steel stop pin. If these handles were made out of titanium, it was much more resistant, it was a harder impact material, you wouldn't need as much contact area, as much actual surface contact is with these tang pins. You can see that these tang pins ride all the way up, right? And so there's a massive amount of contact area. And that's going to prevent deformation on the actual aluminum, right? These aluminum handles are going to be able to be flipped a lot longer if these tang pins don't actually break. You know what I mean? If these tang pins stay up in the, the intended use and intended design, people may have a problem with as much as they're sticking off, you know what I mean? They're kind of way off in the middle of nowhere. They're huge, right? But the benefits that does bring you, I think, is a major positive, because you can see the inside of these tang cups here. This is the same billet aluminum that this thing is made out of, but these tang pins have eaten into that aluminum, right? And I mean, this is an extreme case because those tang pins are almost nothing. They were nothing out of the box. I replaced them and they're still too damn small. I'm going to do it again in a little bit. You can see how deep of a cavity, right, has been left there. And that's not going to happen with these. You can beat the crap out of this, and that's not going to happen with these tang pins. And so that may, it's a positive and a negative. I hope maybe they'll figure out something about the actual heat treatment, whatever is wrong with these pins to actually lead, having that breaking issue. If they can fix that, I think this is a great design, especially for the money, because this thing is going to be able to be beat to hell and continue. Again, I'm going to bring in this trainer here, and I beat the crap out of this thing. Just, you can see every little ding and every little dent is a drop, right? Because it gets dinged when I drop it. So every little ding or every little dent is a time that I have dropped this, is a time that I've thrown it against the concrete, is a time that I've thrown it against rocks, whatever, what have you. So it has been beaten up. And this is a few years old now. And so this knife, I have a lot of confidence in the design. I do think that is, that's a major flaw in it. But overall, this design is going to be able to be beaten up for a really long time. I like the way that these handles are done. They've got a decent amount of grip and they're huge, right? Because this 32 here, it may be something with my larger hands. It may be just, I don't know, personal bias, something like that. But it seems like this knife was kind of compromised for EDC. It seems like, or compromised for ease of carry. It seems like it was designed to be small. It was designed to be very thin. It was designed to be very lightweight, easy to carry, easy to use, right? And because of that, it just doesn't feel as good to flip as something like this. This, you know, more full-size knife, because I've got a whole lot more here to hold on to. I've got a whole lot here to maneuver with. Again, it might just be a personal preference thing. But I think that this is a better use knife. I've got more grip to hold on to. I've got enough handle here. That's not to say there isn't enough handle with the 32. You know what I mean? I can definitely get a good grip on here. It's solid. You know, this knife isn't going to go anywhere, but it just feels better in my hand. The larger handle scales, with as wide as they are, it's more hand filling. I like the way that the grooves are done, and they matched the pattern. I think that's actually entertaining. They didn't alter it at all. They just kind of matched the pattern to the larger version, which is pretty interesting. It's one thing, actually. This is the only knife that I've ever felt the latch smack the back of my hand when I'm flipping, because every once in a while I'll come up like that, and you can see that if it comes up, the latch will hit me, and like that. And so when I can feel that latch, right there, you see it? I can feel that latch smacking into my hand, and it's like that with on multiple maneuvers. You know what I mean? Doing different things, every once in a while I can feel that latch come in and smack me in different places, and that's something that honestly is probably a negative. I would count that as a strike against the knife. However, personally, I like it. I think it's kind of cool. Like it's just a little interesting quirk of the knife. You know what I mean? It's something that gives it personality. Is you being whipped with this little latch. I actually think it's a neat thing. That's the Ops B450. Again, shout out to Chris, the Bally guy, for sending this one to me. That's it. Y'all have a good one.